We're staying Casey and Lily, and in our previous van, we traveled all over the United States. We thought it was time for something different, so we bought a brand new van, built it out, and what's a better idea than, as soon as it's ready, put it on a boat and ship it to Europe, which is exactly what we did. Embark with us on this road trip, an amazing road trip, through all of Europe in our brand new van. We hope you enjoyed this series as much as we did. Pretty unbelievable that this van behind me just a couple of months ago was cruising over the Swiss Alps, going through Italy, going around the coast of Spain, stopping in Barcelona, passing by the Sagrada Familia, stopping at a winery in the Champagne area and parking in front of the Moët Chandon headquarters in France. It is crazy to believe that just a few months ago we were in Saint-Tropez with this van. And now it's back here in the United States. And you guys want to know how we did it, how we shipped it, how much it cost, what the hurdles were to overcome, how much, challenges we had, how much different camping is in Europe compared to the United States. I got good news for you. It's all in this video. So let's dive into the details, but first, coffee. So Casey and I started getting the idea of building a new van, and because I am originally from Europe, I'm originally from Belgium, we had the idea of doing an adventure over there. And basically I told Casey, I said, see it as a road cruise, right? We're going to do different destinations, and then you can see which ones you like, and we can go back there for a longer amount of time. So because of all of that, we knew we had to come up with a solution, and we had to do our own build. We wanted bigger water tanks in our van. We wanted a significant amount of battery power, and we wanted a system that would charge during the day with solar, and when we were driving, enough to power the AC at night when it was cold, when it was warm. This is going to be a little bit of a different type of video. It's going to go more in depth about what we did to ship our van to Europe and why we did it. And in the beginning, so we always wanted to do a European road trip. We thought it was fantastic, the idea of shipping our van overseas and have our van with all our stuff over there and do a big European road trip. We had it planned out for quite some time. But then COVID happened, so that plan was kind of put on the back burner. So what we did at the time, we bought our first RV, which was a van, but it was a factory produced van. It was made by Winnebago. Great van, nothing to complain about. However, not really what you need for an extended road trip. And I'm going to go into details as to why that was. And at least that's for our needs. I mean, other people can say, this is perfect for my needs. Great, awesome. But we are a family of 3, and sometimes when Jill tags along with us, there's 4 of us in the van. So we kind of have different needs, if you want, than other people who are just retired people with 2 people, and so on. So I'm going to tell you guys what worked for us and why we did it, and then we're going to go into the detail about the cost and everything broken down. The factory built van that we had was not ideal for us. There was very limited solar, the water tank capacity was limited, and then also the battery capacity was very, very limited. There were 2 AGM batteries at the time in that van. So we realized that wasn't going to work for us. And the main reason for that is in Europe when you go camping, and that's something that's one of the biggest things to be sure about or to take in consideration, is that in Europe you get 6 amps, and if you're lucky you get 10 in a campground. In the US it's 30 amps or it's 50 amps. So you got to take that in consideration. Standard camper vans over there most likely don't have air conditioning. They don't have a microwave. They don't have an induction cooktop. So everything is gas powered with like bottles of gas or gas canisters. The majority of them don't have TVs. So it's a whole different type of system that they are running over there than what we're used to here in the United States. So we didn't want to lose any comfort. We didn't want to lose anything that would take away from future trips in the United States. So we decided to build something that would be what I call a perpetual machine, right? So it sits in the sun, it charges your batteries. Because during the day, let's think about it, when we were at the campground, we shut everything off. We went to the pool, we went for a walk, we went to the city centers, and the van was just sitting there. So I was looking to make sure that we were parked in the sun so that the solar could charge, and then we have a battery system that I'm going to get in detail about, and then also we have charging when the van is actually, when we're driving it, and it's charging off the alternator of the Mercedes Sprinter. So electric is one of the biggest things to consider. How are you going to charge there? So they have a 220 volt system, so you would have to have an inverter that you can switch from 110 to 220, and you would have to make sure that 6 or 10 amps is enough to charge your batteries if nothing is on, to trickle charge them if you want. But so that's one of the biggest challenges in Europe. And since we were building a van, we kind of tried to overcome all these challenges as we were building them. A second thing is you're going to need an adapter for your water hose. So I would suggest, it's what we did, we put a US fresh water hose, the white ones, we put that in our van. We put actually 2 in them, a longer one and a shorter one. And then when we arrived, I kind of cut off the end that goes onto the faucet. I cut that off, but I kept the end that goes into the van. So I cut off the end that goes in the faucet, and then basically got the European connectors from a store in Europe, put those on the end that goes in the faucet, put the faucet end on the faucet, and then hook that up, and that worked wonderful for us. So we were able to pressure fill our water tanks. The water in most European countries is perfectly drinkable, and in campgrounds they're going to tell you if it's drinkable or not. So if water's not drinkable, it'll have a sign that says this is non-drinkable water. So other than that, put a filter in between, like the filters you can buy here in the US, the Camcos or whatever, put that in between, and then you'll be good to go. So water is not really a problem, but you just got to make sure that you bring your US hose with you that hooks up to your camper van. But to get a little bit more into the details, we used IVSS UK. It's a company out of the UK that is specialized in shipping overlanders or overlanding vehicles. They know what to do, they know all the documents to ask for, etc. We saw a couple of YouTube videos of people that use them and were very happy with them and their service, so we went with them. Then you gotta kinda fill out an inquiry form on their website, and we put in, so the shipment type is temporary export or import, and then you gotta put in your desired shipment date, around what time, and then your point of loading, which is, for us, was East Coast United States, and then they narrow it down after that which port you can prefer. And then your point of destination, which for us was Belgium. We picked Belgium for 2 reasons. 1, it's extremely convenient, and 2, that's where I'm originally from. So then we could pick up the van, drive it to my parents' house. We had time to charge the van, We had time to clean the van, make sure everything was in there, load it up with groceries and stuff like that. So it was just a convenient location. Plus I get to spend time with my family, so that's the reason we did it. And then we drove it from Belgium to the countries we wanted to visit. Belgium also has the biggest seaports in Europe. So the port of Antwerp and the port of Zeebrugge, which I'm getting later to. We shipped into Zeebrugge and shipped out of Antwerp because of the routes. So then you got to give your make, model, and the year of your vehicle, the vehicle type, which is a camper van, your country of registration, and then your vehicle dimensions. So I went off of the Mercedes Sprinter specs, and I said, look, I went on Google and I said specs for Mercedes Sprinter 3500 XD, which this van is. And so it gave me all the specs. This is a 170 extended, so you got a 170 and a 170 extended, so we had to calculate that. And then you convert them from inches into meters and centimeters. Then you put in your CBM, which they calculate for you. It's your cubic meters, it's your volume on the ship, and then the weight. So you got to go weigh your van. When we decided to do this and move forward with it, I went to go on a CAT scale, and just for curiosity too, because it's always great if you build a van that you know how much is it, and for sure. And that's another thing I was gonna tell you guys. Be very much aware, if you build your van yourself, do not go overweight, because in Europe they are extremely strict on vehicles that are overweight. If you get pulled over by the highway patrol, especially in Belgium or in Germany, and you are overweight, they will take you to scales, and if you're overweight, you're done driving. Like, you can no longer drive until you take the weight out, which if you're a cargo van with a load, you take load out and it's great. If everything is built in, how are you going to take load out of a camper van? So that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure. So I went during the build, I went several times to make sure I wasn't overweight. That's also the reason we went with the 3500 XD dually, because I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of, with the water tanks and everything. And I went with everything full, again, just to make sure that if we would drive in Europe and we would have an empty tank, it would, you would always have that margin. So your services is roll on, roll off. So if you ship, you can ship in two ways. You can ship inside a container, which is the most safest method, or you can do roll on, roll off. Roll on, roll off is basically people putting your van on a ship. The ship is you can compare it with a giant parking garage onto the, on the ship on the ocean. It's basically how manufacturers bring brand new cars here. In a container is most safe because you can lock that container. However, this van did not fit in any containers available. It's too high, it's too long, so it didn't work for us. So for that reason, we weren't able to put that in a container. So we had to go with roll on, roll off. And then your shipping insurance. Alright, so and then you gotta have your insurance, which for insurance, you're basically free to do whatever you want. And with insurance, I'm talking about marine insurance, the insurance that you need for the boat, for your shipping. So we went with $125,000, which is way less than what this van actually costed. However, two things play a factor. Its price is one thing. We already paid $700 one way for marine insurance, so it's extremely expensive. And you kind of have to, it's a personal choice you make if you want to insure it higher or not. I mean, we kind of wanted to be in the middle somewhere, so it's a personal choice how much you want to insure it for. However, you need to provide receipts, so you can't over insure. Alright, so once you email them and you get an email back, it'll come from ops docs from IVSS. And then what I did was I asked them, hey, what are your sailing schedules for the next foreseeable, for the next couple of months? We knew we wanted to be in the summer over there for two reasons. One, it's great weather in Europe in the summer, and it's not so sure in the winter how warm it's going to be. Two, Lily was out of school, so we were kind of confined to the summer anyways. So we were asking what are these schedules, and we knew we would have to drop off somewhere in May, and then, you know, to have the van in June. So all in all, this is how the easiest way to calculate it. So for us, the van was on the road for 2 to 3 weeks. Most likely it's 15-16 days is on the boat. So from leaving till arrival. And that depends pretty much how many ports the ship is doing before it reaches the destination port where you are going to pick up your van. So that was one of the things that was for us, you know, the most important thing in the calculation was, okay, you got your time on the ocean, and then also you got your port time, which means you got at least 14 days before sailing date is your cutoff date to drop your vehicle off in the port. And those reasons are, you got to do customs. If there's an additional inspection needed, they have enough time for that, all those things. When your van arrives in the port, you can schedule it 2 to 3 days after arrival. You will get a clearance form that you can then use to go pick up your vehicle. Those are the things. And then we got stuck in customs for additional screening. So we had to call customs in Belgium and say, hey, how long is this going to take? Luckily for us, they were very understanding, and they were understanding. We came from America. We were doing a road trip in Europe. And they said, look, we're going to prioritize your clearance, and they did, and they released it same day for us, which was amazing. Great service from the Belgian customs. But so in the US you got 72 hours. Everything is like set in stone. Customs has 72 hours to go through your van if they want to. So do not bring any food, any spices, any guns, anything of that, because I can tell you they will find it. They go through it with dogs. That you know, you don't want to be in a situation where you bring illegal items into your van, and you will get a whole list of what you can bring and what you can't bring. So the things in a nutshell, what you can bring, everything that is related to camping. So you can bring clothes, you can bring your pots and pans, you can bring your bedding, you can bring recreational stuff, as long as it can or is related to camping or camping activities. Then there are a couple of documents that you will need to provide that they will ask you for. One of the documents is your title. So you have to have the title of the vehicle. Now, most likely, in most states, you only get the title to a vehicle if your vehicle is paid for. So that's one thing to consider. If you want to ship your van, you have to have the title in your possession. I've heard of people that had a loan on the vehicle that were able to convince their lender to give him the title to be able to ship the vehicle overseas. However, I can tell you, a lot of lenders will be very reluctant to that, because at that point, if you stop paying your loan, they can't get to the vehicle anymore once it's overseas. You have to provide your passport and an EIN number. If you want to do temporary export of anything outside the US, or permanent export for that matter, you have to have an EIN number under your name. And the EIN number, the name for which the EIN number is under, and the name on the registration of the vehicle have to match. And that's required for US Customs for all exports out of the United States, temporary or permanent. Then they're going to ask you what is your address in the United States, which is easy, and then they're going to ask you what is your address overseas. So for me it was easy. I used the address of my parents' house, but I guess if you don't have that, you can easily use the address of the campground of your first destination, because it's a formality. They just have to have an address. They called me back and they said, hey, we're going to send you a list of possible ship out ports. And so we are in Florida. We had on the East Coast, we had Jacksonville as an option. Brunswick was an option. Baltimore was an option. And we went with Brunswick. And there's pros and cons. Brunswick it's easy for us. It's only 4-hour drive. But it's a route where all the carriers say that a lot of your stuff can get stolen. I don't understand why that is. It's not on the ports, but apparently it's the route on the ships. I don't know what the difference is between shipping from Baltimore. However, I can tell you this. When we arrived in Belgium, all of our clothing was stolen. Our pots and pans were stolen. Some stuff was stolen. We had an inverter with us to kind of hook up to the shore power in the campground, and then being able to charge our phones and battery packs and stuff from. All that was stolen. On the way back, we shipped from Antwerp to Baltimore with a different boating company. So that was with ACL. The first time was with Wallenius Wilhelmsen, but with ACL, from Antwerp to Baltimore, everything was intact in the van. They hadn't even touched it or went through it. Everything was put here the way it was. So on the way there, it was different. They even tried to go on the roof of the van. So if you ask my personal opinion, when we ship our van back to Europe, and we will at some point, I think 2025 or 2026, we will do it again. But if we ship our van ever again, it'll go from Baltimore to Antwerp with ACL, because we were extremely happy with their service. So then you will get a price quote for your different sea freights, and then you get to add in all the costs. So here we go, and I'm gonna itemize it so you guys know and you guys can understand that the first shipping price you get is not the total price, because I was very excited when I got the sea freight price. Our sea freight for the transport from Brunswick to Zeebrugge was $3,161. I'm like, dang, that's cheap. That's awesome. That's a pretty good price. And then they said, okay, then you get your invoice, and then you get all the itemized cost. Luckily for us, we already knew, because I asked them, I said, can you break up the cost for me? And they sent me an overview. They were awesome to deal with. And then the invoice completely matched what they told us it would be. So great service from IVSS UK. So then you got your sea freight was $3,161. Then the custom clearance and port fees were $400. And our insurance our insurance cost was based on $125,000. That was $713.98. So $713.98. Then we ended up having escort fees to pay for. Your escort fees are between $50 and $125. And what that does is you have to have a TWIC card to be able to drive in the port in the United States. If you don't have that, which I don't, because we never drive in ports. So if you don't have that, you have to be escorted by an escort that is going to take you to where you need to be and drive you straight back out of the port, because the port is it's a secure environment. So that was $50 to $125. For import customs and THC, which is $350. Then the survey was $175. They asked me, hey, do you want to get a survey done of your vehicle in the port? They take pictures, so then you know exactly, if there's damage on the vehicle when you get it back, then you have a leg to stand on and you have proof this is how the vehicle was delivered and this is how I got the vehicle back. Okay, so the total cost of shipping from Brunswick to Zeebrugge was $5,044.98. And it's not like a plane ticket, so you can only book your transport one way. So it's not like you can do, hey, I want to book round trip. That's not how that works. So you can book one transport at a time. So then in Belgium, I was hit with 400 euros in port fees and custom costs. So that's the clearance, that's all of that. And they did not assess any duties or taxes because it was a temporary export. So if you're entering for tourism purposes, you will get a temporary import permit, which you will pay zero taxes on. If you want the vehicle to stay there and you do a permanent import, then you will pay import taxes on the value of your vehicle, because eventually they say the vehicle is going to get sold in Europe, which in our case was not the case. We just shipped it there for tourism purposes, and we were 100% going to bring this vehicle back to the United States. Then the second road trip from Belgium to the US, we opted for Antwerp to Baltimore, which Belgium is a very small country. Antwerp was just a little bit further, like maybe 20 or 30 minutes further than Zeebrugge for me to drop off the van, so that was perfect. And then Baltimore was the kicker, because Baltimore is 14 hours driving from where we are in Florida, and Brunswick was only 4 hours. But I can tell you guys, not getting all your stuff stolen is well worth it. Then you get your sea freight. The sea freight there was more expensive because it depends on times of the year and how full the ships are, and it's really, it's really not at all a science. Like, the sea freight was 3,400 to ship it to Europe. It was 4,785 to ship it back. So yeah, that was kind of expensive. And then you got your ISPS fee, which I don't remember what that is, but it was on my invoice. $54. Then we got the bill of lading fee. That was also $54. Then your export fee in Europe was $246. We had custom clearance and port fees at $230. Import customs, $355. And marine insurance was $794 on that trip. So all in all, we were at $6,519.79, which made the total round trip cost for us at $11,564.77. You can say, man, that's expensive, $11,000. It is, absolutely. However, when we made, the cost comparison, if we rent a vehicle overseas, is it going to be cheaper? The answer is, for the time that we had it and the distance that we wanted to cover, no. Because you only get like a certain amount of miles each day, and then if you go over the amount of miles, you get charged extra. You don't get the vehicles in Europe get delivered empty. You don't get pot spans, bedding, anything of that matter. So how will you do that? Usually if people in Europe rent one, they use their stuff from their house that they put in there and they're good to go. We would have had to bring everything over there in suitcases, which we didn't want to do. Because we were in Europe active traveling for a little over 8 weeks. So that would have been more expensive. We would have paid close to 15,000 euros for that whole road trip if we were to rent one. So it was actually cheaper for us to ship our own camper there, and it was a lot, it was easier. I mean, when you build a van, I know where everything is. Any defects, I was ready for it. I was like, all right, if anything, I know how to fix it. So there's a couple of things to consider when you want to do that. There's a lot of preparation that goes into this, and also a lot of stress, because when your vehicle's on the boat, you're cut off from, the only thing you have is your boat tracker. Because we put Apple tags in here. I had the vehicle GPS. None of that stuff works when it's on the ocean. So you're at the mercy of the boat tracker, and that's pretty much the only thing you have. Then you have your title clearance. So when you ship it out here, they will ask you for your title clearance. You will have to give them an envelope with a FedEx label so they can ship the original documents back to you, because they need your title and your passport, and they ship it all back to you within a couple of days. So I think 3 or 4 days after I gave it to them, I already had it back here in the mailbox. And then that's a big thing too. A lot of you guys asked, what with gas or propane? Well, again, we built this van specifically for that road trip, so I wanted it to be all electric. The electric system in this van, we have a 10 battery, lithium ion battery. It's all battle born. We have 1,000 amp hours of batteries in here in this van, enough to power the air conditioning, enough to power everything off grid. We have 710 watts of solar, which charges ample during the day if we're not using anything. And then the days we were driving in Europe, then it was charging both on the solar and off of the alternator of the car. So we never ran out of power to where we had to scramble and find a different solution. So we also monitored our power, that we used our barbecue to cook on more so than our induction cooked up on days that the power was getting lower. So you kind of have to still monitor it because it's not unlimited. But so those are the things. So we got asked from a lot of people, hey, what if we have propane in our coach? Great question. So if you do have propane, it has to be 100% empty and it has to be certified and sealed. There are a couple of companies that they recommended, if we were to have propane, how to do it. So you have to visit those companies, they will empty your tanks, they will seal it and certify it, and then you have to give them those documents stating that this company, who is recognized by them, declares that your vehicle is empty propane wise. Then you can ship it to Europe, and then in Europe you can have it filled. There are several adapters that you can get on Amazon, European to US adapters, the other way around. So what you need to ask for, the correct term is RV purge for shipment. So they need to what they call purge your gas tank for shipment, and the cost is around $120. Cashgas.com is one of them that does it. I will put the link in the description as well, so you guys can go on that website and look, if you were to have propane, on how to get it emptied and get it certified. So then you will have your protocols, your sailing frequency, again your cutoff date. Some ports is 14 days, some other ports is 7 days prior to sailing. And then your marine cargo insurance, that is your percentage of, it's usually 0.55% of the declared value is what you're going to pay. But again, that may fluctuate based on which insurance company they're going with. So for reference, $125,000 value for us was about $700, $700 to $800 each way in marine insurance, for reference. The shipping boat company. So I told you guys we went with the broker IVSS UK. Other brokers included are Seabridge. I hear a lot of great things about Seabridge as well. The shipping boat companies that are most frequently used for that are WWL, which is Wallenius Wilhelmsen, Grimaldi Lines, ACL, and K-Line. After your ship has sailed is when you pay the invoice. So you will get the invoice the moment, or I'd say a couple of hours after your ship has left the port with your van on it. You will have confirmation your van is on there, it has left the port, and that's when you pay the invoice to IVSS. Again, so it'll have a ship tracker. You will log in on the website, you will be able to see where the ship is at any given time and which ports it does and stuff like that. That was great for us, because that also gives you a little bit of peace of mind if you want, you know, because this, I mean, it's an expensive vehicle. I mean, if I add up all the costs and the labor that went into this van, it gave me a lot of stress not knowing where your van is. So again, look very good and very carefully through the list of what you can and cannot bring, because if you drop your van off in the port and there are forbidden items on there, they will not put it on the ship, and then you will rack up extended port fees and stuff like that. You will have to go back there, empty that out, and then it'll throw off your whole planning. So you don't want to do that. The second thing is, any personal item in the ship, they're telling you, is at your own risk. The only thing I would not put in there anymore are clothes, because we got all our clothes stolen. We got nothing stolen, no pots and pans on the way back, but we did get pots and pans stolen on the way there. If I ship again with ACL, I would leave my pots and pans in there, because it's something, I mean, for us it was easily replaced. I mean, we went to a store overseas and we bought them there, and did that. Our bedding was not touched. Nobody wanted that. And then all our tools and stuff like that were still in here, so nobody took that either. So you have to declare that everything that is inside is at your own risk. The other thing is, you can ship items inside of the vehicle. However, it has to be neatly stowed away. In other words, if someone comes in the van and they look in it, it has to appear empty, meaning you cannot store anything on these benches, on the table, on the countertops, anywhere in plain view. You can store everything away in the cabinets and where things belong, but it has to, if they look inside your van, there cannot be any stuff laying around. And then license plates. So that's a big one. When we did research, we were like, okay, how is this gonna go driving in Europe with our United States license plates? So I have some friends over there that are in law enforcement, so I contacted them and I was like, am I allowed to do this? And they said, yeah, absolutely, you're allowed to do this. under a temporary export, you can drive with your license plates from America. I was like, all right, great. The only problem is in Florida, we only get one license plate. We don't have a front license plates. And in Europe, every country has front license plates. So it's not like in the US, some do, some don't. If you don't have a front license plate in Europe, you will stand out like a sore thumb and you will get pulled over every single time. So we've been on one of these websites that does souvenir plates, and we made a plate, Florida design plate, and we used the same combination that was on the rear plate, put that on the front. Never had any problems with it whatsoever, because there was a duplicate plate on the front of our vehicle. So take that into consideration. If you are a one plate state, that you have and there's tons of websites out there that do these souvenir plates, that you can have a plate made with the same combination as your license plate. If you are a two license plate state, then just take your two plates and you'll be fine. So the other thing is, leave your plates on the vehicle or off the vehicle. You can leave them on if you want to on the ship. However, we opted not to. We took them with us. So I took them off in the port, took them with us, and then we traveled with them in our suitcase or in our carry-on luggage to Europe and put them back on there when we collected the vehicle. The reason why is they say that US license plates are highly collectible and they might steal your plates. Casey and I did not want to take the risk of showing up in Europe and have no plates to start traveling with, because that would have been an extreme hassle to be able to get a license plate to be able to travel with our vehicle. Another hot topic that I got asked by a lot of people is, how do you get road insurance? Very easy. We use the company, a German company. It's called tourinsure.de, and I will link that below as well. We paid about $229 a month just for regular road insurance. Comprehensive and collision insurance is really expensive, and then you have another option that insures you for theft only. We didn't take any of that, so we just basically did the road insurance, and that was $229 a month. Because the kicker is, I don't know how it is in your state, but in Florida, if you cancel your insurance on a vehicle but you don't cancel your license plate, they would suspend your driver's license. So for the whole time the vehicle was out overseas, we also paid for insurance in the US through our normal insurance company to be able to keep our plates on the vehicle. So that's another thing, that's another cost to calculate, that you're going to incur if your state would suspend your license if you cancel your insurance but not your license plate, which Florida does. Fuel in the vehicle must be at less than 1/4 of a tank. And the reason for that is just weight on the ship. They want to eliminate as much weight as they possibly can. So for that reason, 1/4 of a tank. I gotta say, on the way back I was kind of like around half a tank and nobody said anything. But again, I didn't do it on purpose, and if I would have, I would have not taken the risk, because they can easily say, and it depends from person to person, we're not putting it on the ship, and then your trip is completely messed up. You cannot take any food, perishable items, anything that is flammable, hazardous, pressurized canisters, anything, dangerous weapons. And then in Europe, what we did was, and I was lucky, my dad has a 50 meter, which is 50 yards, electric extension cord. But in Europe, when you go camping, things to take in consideration: there are no picnic tables. We had only one campsite out of all the ones we've done that had a picnic table. So you will need to put your own camping table away and your own chairs if you want to have a chair and tables to eat on. Any campsite in Europe does not have any dump stations or anything on your site. Usually there's one dump station for the whole campground. And you drive to it. It's like a sink that is recessed in the ground. You drive over it, you dump your tanks, you hose everything off, and you're good to go. So you kind of have to calculate, and we did, how many days per campground, and because otherwise you got to move your vehicle continuously to dump your tanks. Another thing to consider: you will not get dedicated electric, So there's usually one pole, one electric pole to hook up to for 6 or 7 or 8 campsites even, that all go there with extension cords. So that's why, you know, I was lucky to use my dad's, but we used a 50-yard extension cord, and it was plenty for us to hook up our little inverter that we bought. Another thing to consider: water. Water, usually they have, some campgrounds have more, but a lot of campgrounds we visited have one potable water inlet per campground as well, usually by the dumping station, that vicinity. So we filled up our water tanks everywhere we could. A lot of sites are also just grass, and parking. You pretty much can park in whichever direction you want to on your site. So it's not like in the US where everything is parked like nicely, neatly next to each other. You just, this is your site, you park however you see fit. So camping in Europe is slightly different as it is in the United States. Another big challenge for us was the European roads. They're a lot smaller than in the United States. So if you go into historic city centers, you really need to take in consideration the you know, the vehicle you're driving. We did not take our car into, or our van into, any historic city center for our convenience, but also for our safety. We just pretty much parked in a campground and then Ubered or took a taxi to the city centers. So we were in Rome, for example. We had a campground very close to the city center. We left our van there and then we Ubered from and to the city center, which was extremely convenient. And also you have 100% peace of mind that your van's not going to get broken into, and then you have to, you know, we saw so many horror stories on YouTube about people that parked their van in cities and then they got broken into, then they had to file police reports and stuff like that. So we just didn't want to deal with any of that. So campgrounds in Europe are usually a lot cheaper than in the United States, and you will pay usually a little bit extra for electricity. Bathhouses are excellent, laundry facilities are excellent in most campgrounds, so you won't have a problem with that. So those are the biggest differences. In Europe, everybody drives on the right hand side of the road, because that's a question we get too. How was it driving on the other side of the road? And I said, well, only in the UK, which we didn't do the UK this time. So only in the UK they drive on the left hand side. All other European countries drive on the right hand side of the road, just like in America, which makes it extremely easy to drive over there. You just have to take in consideration speed limit signs can be a little bit different. So if you want to go online and look at European road signs, and it's very easy to make you familiar with that very quickly. Other than that, like I said, the roads are smaller, parking spots are smaller, supermarkets are smaller. So take that all in consideration and plan ahead. And because a lot of supermarkets do have parking lots where your van will fit. Also, if you go early in the morning, it won't be as busy as later, or as during peak hours when people are off of work or where people come outside. France has a toll road system. If you take freeways, you will need to pay tolls. Italy has a toll system too, so take that in consideration. The only way to avoid tolls is to take other roads, not go on the freeways. And then internet. We used a hotspot system. I will link it below as well, where you can go online and basically reserve your hotspot, and then you receive it when you go to Belgium. You pick it up. It works all over Europe, so that you have unlimited data to use when you're on the road, which is extremely important for us, because we wanted to keep in touch with the home front, keep in touch with our company, keep in touch with, you know, everything we needed to do, and also upload videos and materials. So that was one of the biggest reasons that we decided we need internet, we need that mobile hotspot. So you pay a fee, and very easy to do. Another thing important to mention, there is no turn on red in Europe. So if you're on the red light, do not turn right on red. That's the United States thing. That's not a European thing. You will get ticketed. You will get pulled over every time you do a right on red. Don't ask me how I know. Also, a lot of people have asked me that too. Hey, if I have an RV and I have a tow vehicle, can I bring both to Europe? The answer to that is no. Europe does not allow any flat towing of vehicles like we do in the US with a tow bar and that kind of stuff. Not allowed in Europe. So unfortunately, you cannot bring your tow vehicle there. And to be honest, we didn't need it. I mean, it was plenty comfortable with going everywhere we wanted to go with the van. Another question we got from a lot of people is, how is dumping in Europe? Well, dumping in Europe, so we have our gray water tank is hooked up to an automatic dump, because it is allowed if you park over grass or any area that is not hardened, which means no asphalt or concrete, you can dump your gray water on the ground. However, for black water application, it's totally different. We have a dedicated black water tank that we only dumped in either campgrounds where the dump clearly stated that you could dump your black water tank there, or alongside the highways there are dumps available, and it usually has a picture of a camper van with an arrow from the middle down. That's usually the symbol. That means there is a dump on like a parking, alongside a highway. So that's what we used, and also they will state if they accept black water or not. All right, guys. So this pretty much concludes the whole European road trip thing, and the do's and the don'ts, the cost broken down in all the separate areas for you guys, so you know which costs, when to pay them, and all that kind of stuff. If you have any questions, please drop a comment below. And if you like this video and you want to support us, please consider subscribing to our channel. We'll see you in the next one.